We're here today with Allan Simpson, the second part of a two-part interview on Allan, absolutely the founder of Baseball America. Allan, you know, part of your story is working with Miles Wolff in Durham, North Carolina. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about that story and how that came to be.
Well, Sean, as I mentioned in the first part, I launched it in White Rock, British Columbia, Baseball America in White Rock, and I think I did with the intent that, okay, if that's what it takes to get it off the ground, I can persevere for maybe a year or two in my garage in Canada, and I was led to believe at the time by the immigration people that if I just got it off the ground and made it a viable entity, at that point I could look for investors or companies in the U.S. that would buy Baseball America and bring it to whatever location that might be in the U.S. So that's essentially what we did. Is I just did whatever I could to keep it off the ground. I was really a one-man operation, being the publisher, the editor, trying to sell subscriptions, do the typesetting, do everything pretty much, and do anything I could to get it off the ground. And there was some struggles. There's no question. 5 or 6 months in, I was really second-guessing myself whether this was smart, and the limited investment that I had in it had pretty much dried up by that point. But I guess I made a commitment to go, okay, we'll go a little further. And then I sort of started turning the corner when people were starting to renew for a second year and sending comments, gosh, this is great. We don't have anything like that. People that were interested in minor league baseball and the draft and college baseball and various other things that, you know, the average baseball fan that reads a daily newspaper doesn't even realize that's out there from a baseball grassroots standpoint. And so I did that. I did it for a couple of years, just did everything I could to persevere, and I, at the same time, looking for an investor. And it just so happens I had a mutual friend of Miles Wolff, as you mentioned. And Miles Wolff, just to give a sense of just who Miles is, was the owner of the real-life Durham Bulls, and he was just starting his minor league empire at that point with that club. And it was a raging success for a couple of years, and he brought me to Durham to run Baseball America. He was effectively the publisher. I was the editor, and we got it here after a couple of years. And by this point, the magazine was getting a bit of a foothold here, and recognition by major league clubs and the mainstream media and fans alike, and the subscriber base was growing quite well by that point. But that's essentially how we came to Durham, is because it was a connection between a mutual friend of mine that I had gotten to know when I ran a minor league club for the Montreal Expos back in Canada in the mid-'70s, and same person knew Miles, and they put us together, and it really took off from there. You know, Miles got me a visa to come down here, a temporary visa, and he was led to believe that would be the tough one to get, and as it turns out, that he walked in the office and about 15 minutes later walked out with a visa, but was told 5 years later, we're going to have to get you a permanent visa. And boy, did we ever go through some difficulty in getting me a visa at 5 or 6 years later. And in fact, I didn't have status here for about 2 years and couldn't go back to Canada at any point there. But at the same time, the magazine just grew, and I think we were early 90s, which I thought was the heyday of the magazine. We were up to about 75 or 80,000 subscribers, and that's certainly a workable number. You got to realize that this is a niche product that focuses on baseball things that the mainstream fan probably, if he's looking to see a Boston Red Sox or New York Yankees game, isn't going to be that interested in. But we felt like it served a purpose, and it just gained a great foothold in baseball circles here.
Looking back now, we're approaching the 30th year or 30th anniversary of the publication. Would you ever have believed that it would have gotten to where it is today? The brand recognition, the naming, and just all the things that have gone along with that, including the Durham Bull's success.
You know, that's a question I've asked myself a lot of times, and I say yes, but at the same time I say no. It's just one of those things that it took perseverance, and I also had a great sense of timing, because, you know, as I mentioned, the Sporting News was kind of backing out of the market, and gosh, it wasn't 5 or 6 years later that I think we surpassed them as our influence in baseball. But I think the thing that I really noticed that the Sporting News, or at least my sense, the sense of timing that I had is minor league baseball was just then starting to take a foothold. The draft, for some reason, just all of a sudden created some public awareness that wasn't there before. I'm not saying it's because we sort of jumped into those areas, but that's the sense of timing that we're talking about. The strike of 1981 was our first season, and that couldn't have come along at a better time. As much as a baseball fan, you lament a strike coming along, but it was perfect for our timing. It was shedding light on this new baseball product, and people were going out to minor league games, which is a big part of our coverage, and the draft went decidedly more towards college players that year, where it had never gone in the past, and those were somewhat more recognizable names. The College World Series all of a sudden was taking a major foot on. We just happened to come along at precisely the right time.
Great. Well, I understand, there are initial discussions on a potential book regarding Baseball America, its impact along with the Durham Bulls, and how's that coming along?
Well, to be honest with you, Sean, we're meeting just very shortly, and Violence Wolf and a person that just happened to be the local sports writer at the newspaper here in Durham, and probably the first two people I ever met when I came to Durham, and myself, are putting a book together that will essentially hinge on the 1980 Durham Bulls. Now, that was the recreation of the Bulls as we know it, and they were a raging success their first season. That enabled Miles to jump in with Baseball America. It really enabled the movie Bull Durham, the movie, to really take hold 7 or 8 years later. But this was a popular minor league team regionally before it ever became nationally popularized by the movie. Miles has since gone on to once he sold the Bulls to develop independent baseball. Just the minor leagues totally flourished. I think it flourished because of Miles' first year here, and in a very indirect way, it probably brought the Carolina Hurricanes into the mix, because Miles was looking for money once he sold them. I think he bought the Bulls for $24,000, sold them for upwards of $4 million. About 10 years later, he's looking for money to invest, so he invested in an ECHL hockey team, the Raleigh Ice Caps. And the Carolina Hurricanes would have never come to town if it wasn't for Miles establishing that there really was a hockey market here to bring an NHL team to.
Amazing. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stories that our readers and listeners want to hear about further. I'll keep them updated on a potential book coming down the road. But I really want to congratulate you on all the success through Baseball America. And I'll leave the site with so people can check up on Baseball America, and also the Perfect Game as well, which you're working with today.
Absolutely.
And thank